Good day. Okay, and so yes, let's take a look at your muscle tissue. Okay, and so please note that first is so your muscle tissue. Okay, and so it is a type, one of your four general types of tissue that, of course, they can contract and produce movement. Okay, and so they generate force through contraction. And please note that the movement is generated by interaction of the proteins present in your muscle tissue. And what are those proteins? You have your proteins actin and myosin present in each muscle fiber. Okay, and so yes, your let's take a look. Your muscle tissue, and so in this a particular presentation, we'll be taking a look at your skeletal muscles, your smooth muscle, together with your cardiac muscle accordingly. Okay, and so please note that a general characteristics for your muscles, they're composed of elongated cells, and you call these cells elongated cells as fibers. And the cytoplasm of your muscle fiber is called as your sarcoplasm, and the muscle cell membrane is the sarcolemma. Okay, the muscle fibers again, they contain myofibrils, and these myofibrils they are made of your contractile proteins, actin and myosin. Okay, and so these are key components. Actin and myosin, these are key components needed for the generation of contraction. Okay, let's take a look at your characteristics of your muscle tissue. Okay, and so yes, this your muscle tissue they have this ability to contract. Okay, and so or the contractility characteristic. And your muscle tissue with this contractility, they can shorten forcefully. Okay, and so excitability for your muscle tissue. With this also, yes, they respond to stimuli. Extensibility, your muscle tissue, okay, they stretch without being damaged. And yes, in relation to extensibility, your elasticity, they return to original shape after stretching. Okay, and so, and yes, these properties are provided by the presence of your myofibrils, and these myofibrils contain contractile proteins known as your actin and myosin. Okay, let's take a look. Your muscle fibers. These are long cylindrical cells containing myofibrils. Okay, and so your muscle fibers, or accordingly, these are your muscle cells. And your myofibrils, they are composed of repeating units called your sarcomeres. Your sarcomeres, then these are the basic functional units of a muscle. Okay, and so your sarcomere, it contains your thin filament that is known as your actin, and your thick filament that is your myosin that will slide past each other to produce contraction. Okay, let's take a look at your muscle tissues, your skeletal muscles. Your skeletal muscle fibers, okay, and so they are nucleated with peripheral nuclei. Okay, and so when you say peripheral, they are located at the periphery of the cell. They are not located at the center, but the periphery. Okay, and so they possess myofibrils, of course, that are actually again needed for the contraction. You have your actin and myosin filaments that form distinct cross striation patterns. Okay, and so this distinct cross striation patterns give your skeletal muscle fibers a striated characteristic. Okay, and so you have a light I bands and dark A bands also, and this is bisected by a Z line. And yes, the sarcomeres of your skeletal muscle fibers, they have this repeating contractile units that is seen along the entire length of each myofibril accordingly. Okay, let's take a look. Your skeletal muscle, they are surrounded by an epimysium. Okay, and so this epimysium is made of dense irregular connective tissue that uh, surrounds a bundle of skeletal muscle fibers. Okay, your perimysium, this one divides the interior of your muscle into smaller bundles to produce your fascicles. And these fascicles, okay, so are further subdivided into individual muscle fibers, and these individual muscle fibers are covered by or surrounded by your endomysium. Okay, and so your endomysium uh, surrounds your individual muscle fibers, and then your perimysium will surround a group of muscle fibers, and then your epimysium will surround your muscle accordingly. Okay, and so your skeletal muscle, back to the characteristics, this is the control is voluntary. Okay, and so voluntary meaning you have the control for it. Okay, and they are striated in appearance, and they have a multinucleated cells. And yes, for the function, this one is responsible for the movement of your skeleton as well as your organs. And the contraction accordingly of your skeletal muscle is quick, forceful, and usually under again a voluntary control. Okay, and so take a note that it is voluntary. And this one's for the location of your skeletal muscle. They are located elsewhere in your skeletal system. And yes, they are usually attached to your bones. Okay, and so this one is an illustration of your uh, a transverse section of a muscle. Okay, and so please note of your fascicles. These fascicles are surrounded by perimysium. Okay, and so this is a fascicle, and this one is surrounded by a perimysium. Okay, and so these are your individual skeletal muscle fibers. You have this individual skeletal muscle fibers present here. Okay, and so you have your endomysium. Again, when you say endomysium, it surrounds your single muscle fibers. Okay, yes, and this one is again another illustration of a muscle. Okay, and so please note of these striations. Okay, and so please note of the striations of this striations in this muscle. Okay, and so this is a muscle fiber. Okay, and so you have the nuclei present. Okay, and so please note they are not centrally located. Okay, and so you have the Z line and the rest. Okay. Yes, let's move on to your cardiac muscle. They are located in the walls and the septa of the heart and in the walls of large vessels attached to the heart. Example of this, you have your aorta. Okay, and so also this one exhibit distinct cross striations, same with your skeletal muscle fibers, with your skeletal muscles. Okay, and so yes, okay, with this, you have it has one nuclei accordingly, and the fibers are branched. Okay, and so yes, same again. It is similar to your skeletal muscle with the cross striations. And again, these cross striations are results of your regular arrangement of your actin and myosin filaments that are present in your myofibrils. And these myofibrils again are located present in your muscle fibers. Okay, and so with this, you have your intercalated disc. This is a characteristic and then sustaining end-to-end junctional complexes located actually produced actually by your cross striations. Okay, and so for your characteristic of your cardiac muscle, the control is involuntary. Okay, and so even if ayaw mong mag-pump yung heart mo ng dugo, then it will still pump because of course your cardiac muscle that makes up the heart is in involuntary control. Okay, and so striated, but again with branch fibers. Also, you have your intercalated disc that located for synchronized contraction. And yes, for the function, it provides continuous rhythmic contractility of the heart. Okay, and so please note, it is continuous. Okay, and so again, kapag nag-stop na po kasi ang heart mag-pump ng blood, then that will result to death. Okay, and so that will result to death accordingly. And yes, with this, please note that the muscle of the heart ventricles is much thicker than that of the atrium. Okay, and so please note that your ventricles, accordingly, these are the ones that will pump blood throughout the body. Okay, and so tissue location located in the heart walls and walls of large blood vessels. Okay, and so that is for your cardiac muscle. Okay, let's take a look. You have here for an illustration of a cardiac muscle. Okay, and so you have here your intercalated disc. Okay, and so you still have the cross striations present. Okay, and so you have your cross striations here. These are your cross striations. You have your intercalated here. This is your endomysium. This one is not a muscle tissue, but a connective tissue that will somewhat cover your individual muscle fiber. Okay, and so please note the muscle fibers are branch. Okay, and so they are branch. Okay, and you have a nuclei that is centrally located for this one. Okay. And yes, another illustration. Okay, and so this one is at a lower magnification. Please note again that they are branch. Okay, and so this is a single muscle fibers, single muscle fiber, and it is branch. Okay, and so yes, you still have the cross striations are still visible. You can still see the dark staining intercalated disc. Okay, and so for this one. Okay, let's move on to your smooth muscle. The fibers are fusiform in shape and has a single nuclei. Okay, and so for your smooth muscle, there this again fusiform, they are tapering. Okay, and please note that in your smooth muscle, they are unstriated. Okay, and so you have the other two, you have your cardiac and your skeletal muscles, they are striated, or yes, they have cross striations, while for your smooth muscle, it does not have striations. Okay, and so yes, this one also contain contractile proteins. You have your actin and myosin filaments, but then again, they are not arranged in such a way to produce cross striations. Okay, and so characteristics, of course, you have your involuntary control for your smooth muscle. Same with your cardiac muscle. Your cardiac muscle and your smooth muscle, these ones are involuntarily controlled. Okay, and so yes, and they are your smooth muscle fibers or your smooth muscle. It is a non-striated and the spindle shaped cells. It has spindle shaped cells with a single nuclei. Function, of course, yan is to move substances. Okay, and so it will function to move substances like your blood. Tissue location, this one is located in your blood vessels. Okay, and part of your digestive, your respiratory, your urinary, and your reproductive tracts and their associated organs. Okay, and so again, moving to that function again. Okay, and so it moves substances. Okay, and so this is an illustration of a smooth muscle fiber. I mean a smooth muscle tissue. Okay, and so you have your smooth muscles, your smooth muscle fibers. These are actually the nuclei of these ones. Okay, centrally located. And then you have this one in a transverse plane naman. Okay, you have smooth muscle fibers with you. Okay. And yes, another one. This is at a lower magnification. No? Okay, and so you can there are no again, and so for this, there are no cross striations present. Okay, and so no cross striations present in this case. Okay, and so you have your the nuclei present. Okay, and so in this muscle fibers. Okay, and so please note that this one is for your relax. This is an illustration of a muscle fiber in a relaxed state. Okay, and this one is in a contracted state. accordingly. Okay. I guess let's move on to your nervous tissue. Okay, and so your nervous tissue is one of your four basic types of tissue. Again, enumerating your four basic types of tissue, you have your epithelial tissue that will cover your organ surfaces, organ that will line your organs. And then, of course, they are located in your skin also. Then you have your connective tissue, and then you have your muscle tissue, and then finally, for your nervous tissue. Okay, and so let's take a look at this nervous tissue accordingly. Okay, and so your nervous tissue specialized for communication by electrical and chemical signals. Okay, and so we'll just make this one real short because there is part soon we will take a look at your nervous system. Okay, and so in your organ system study. Now, okay, and so for this one, your nervous tissue specialized for communication by electrical and chemical signals. And yes, the function, of course, it will send signal, process the information, and transmit the signal for response. Okay, and so let's take a look here. CNS, your PNS, according to your CNS, this is surrounded by bones and cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, and so of course that is for protection. The bone is for protection. Okay, the dura mater in the dura mater is the tough outermost connective tissue layer that is present around the central nervous system. And yes, please note that your delicate arachnoid matter and dura covers your CNS on the external surfaces. Okay, and so you have a pia mater that adheres to the surface of the brain and spinal cord. And between this one, this pia mater and arachnoid matter is your subarachnoid space, and that is the location of your cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, and so moving on to your peripheral nervous system. Okay, and so again, we'll just make this really quick because for your CNS, there is a what we call this a separate lecture for this as we go to move as we move into your organ systems. No, for your PNS, of course, peripheral that is away from your spinal cord and your brain. Of course, with this, it consists of neurons, neuroglia, nerves, and axons outside again of your central nervous system. Your cranial nerves arise from the brain and spinal nerves from spinal cord. The ganglia are accumulation of neurons and ganglia is covered by the connective tissue. And yes, there's a PNS contains both sensory and motor nerves or neurons, and the neurons of your PNS can be located in the CNS or in the ganglia. Okay, and so this is an illustration of a neuron that is, yes, your fundamental unit of your nervous system. Okay, and so you have your neuron for this one, or your nerve cell, that's what you call it. Okay, and so this is a diagrammatic illustration of a neuron showing its parts. You have here, of course, the nuclei. Then you have your, what you call this, axon, your terminal bottoms, and your dendrite, accordingly, your dendrite, your terminal bottoms, and then your cell nuclei. And of course, this is the body, no? Okay, and so this is the dendrite. Okay, and so I guess we will end here.